Greetings, friends. You are watching Ruslan Belov's channel, and today we will break down the situation in Ukraine in detail as of January 20th, 2026. Over the past 24 hours, a great number of extremely important events have taken place, so let's not delay and get straight to the point. We begin with another massive combined strike, which, according to available data, involved dozens of missiles and hundreds of drones. On the night of January 20th, the Russian side launched a massive strike across Ukrainian territory. Various sources report numerous explosions and note that the Russian Federation once again placed its primary focus on hitting energy infrastructure targets. Early this morning, Ukrainian resources published a map showing the presumed flight paths of the Russian missiles and drones. Based on this diagram, two main areas can be identified where the primary weight of the strike fell. The first is the southeastern and eastern part of Ukraine, the territory between the Pokrovsk and Kharkiv regions. The second is northern Ukraine, where a high concentration of strikes was recorded in Kiev, the Kiev region, and the Chernihiv region. At the same time, it is important to understand that the nature of these strikes differs significantly. Regarding the southeastern direction, as seen in publications, the strikes there were primarily carried out by Gryshyne-type drones. Currently, there is no convincing confirmation, statements, or open data indicating that missiles were used in this specific area during the night. However, in the case of the Kiev and Chernihiv regions, the situation looks different. According to reports, both drones and various types of missiles were used. This includes Iskanders, cruise missiles, and ballistic missiles. Now let's examine everything in more detail. Returning to the southeastern and eastern parts of Ukraine, a large number of strikes and explosions were noted there. Reports came in from the Dnipropetrovsk region, the Zaporizhia region, strikes near the front line, the Dobropilya sector, Kharkiv, and other directions. Based on the overall picture, strikes throughout the night may have been directed at presumed locations and concentrations of the armed forces of Ukraine's AFU air defense systems. I will remind you that just the day before, a video was published by the Rubicon Group from this same direction. We already discussed these images yesterday. They show a large number of strikes on AFU air defense systems in this area. To be more precise, there is extensive video evidence of radar targets being hit. The footage records strikes on radars and radar installations located in the Zaporizhia, Dnipropetrovsk, Kharkiv, Mykolaiv, and Odessa regions. In other words, strikes were carried out across several regions simultaneously, and their main objective appears to have been to weaken the Ukrainian air defense system and soften up the defense, creating conditions for the main strike to push further toward the Kiev region and likely Kiev itself. Furthermore, during the same period, specifically on January 18th, another video from the Rubicon Group was published. In this footage, one can observe the Russian side identifying a Patriot system during reconnaissance operations, after which a series of strikes involving dozens of drones was immediately launched against it. According to the stated version, this Patriot system, located southwest of Kharkiv, was destroyed on January 18th. Then, on January 19th, a video appeared dedicated to the destruction of radar equipment in the same part of Ukraine. And today, January 20th, yet another recording was published. This time from the territory southwest of the administrative center of the Dnipropetrovsk region. This footage shows a situation where Russian units managed to detect the position of a Patriot anti-aircraft missile system. Immediately after the position was identified, the launcher and radar were apparently struck, presumably using the Iskander system. The explosion in the video appears extremely powerful and is clearly visible. Thus, we can conclude that in the 3 days preceding the massive strike on Ukraine, the Russian Federation caused serious damage to Ukraine's air defense system, specifically in the eastern and southeastern parts of the country. A large amount of radar equipment was destroyed, and at least 2 Patriot batteries were put out of action. Following all these actions, a new massive strike began. However, we see once again that the Russian side apparently continued to deliver so-called preventative strikes in those same areas to ensure as much as possible that the main wave of the strike directed toward Kiev could reach its targets without serious opposition. Regarding Kiev specifically, there was very little information about the strikes during the night hours. Yes, there were reports of disruptions to electricity, water, and heating, but the Ukrainian side published almost no video footage of explosions or hits. Zelensky stated that at least 80 million euros worth of missiles were used during the night. But there is one important point here. Throughout the night, not a single publication, news report, or detail emerged, suggesting that the Ukrainian assets, which were heavily promoted in January as anti-drones, took part in repelling the attack. I recall that throughout January, the Ukrainian side repeatedly posted videos showing the use of their know-how, labeled as anti-drones. These videos showed an object resembling a Russian Gryshyne drone, followed by a demonstration of it allegedly being struck by this very anti-drone. Many expected that in the event of another massive strike, like the night attack on January 20th, Ukraine would begin using such means systematically and in large quantities. But I repeat, by the end of January 20th, we have yet to receive any clear information on whether these drones were used in reality and whether they participated in repelling the raid. It is possible they were not deployed at all. Also during the day, the Ministry of Defense of Ukraine published information regarding the work of their air defense. According to these data, during the night, the Russian side used 372 aerial targets, and the Ukrainian side managed to shoot down 342 of them. Based on this report, it appears that a total of 30 missiles and drones reached their targets. Following this, numerous reports appeared in the media, along with individual statements from Kiev Mayor Klitschko, detailing which districts are experiencing problems with electricity, heat, and water. It is specifically mentioned that almost the entire left bank of Kiev is without electricity, heating, and water supply. Since this morning, video footage has begun to appear showing residents of the Ukrainian capital trying to get to work after the night strikes. Large crowds of people are visible at bus stops and near metro entrances, unable to use transport normally. It appears a minor transport collapse has occurred. Other footage also shows hundreds of people standing in lines for shuttle buses and buses, presumably to get to work. However, there is currently not enough information to draw confident and final conclusions about the full scale and consequences of what is happening. Now, moving directly to the line of contact. Let's start with the Sumy axis, where Russian units continue their offensive toward the city of Sumy from both the north and the southeast. Today, several pro-Russian sources and mappers made adjustments to the map between the settlements of Pokrovsk and Gryshyne. According to published reports, Russian units have entered a small forest area and tree lines located to the southeast. It is likely from this bridgehead that the Russian army will develop further advances toward the settlement of Gryshyne itself. Next, we move to the Kharkiv direction, specifically the northeastern part of the Kharkiv region. This morning, information emerged that Russian units crossed the border between the Belgorod and Kharkiv regions in yet another sector of the front, specifically the zone between the settlements of Terezovka and Dektyana. Small changes reflecting this have already appeared on the maps today. We have been discussing this sector for several days now, and I want to remind you how it all started. The first active reports from this direction began on January 17, 2026, when Russian sources published a video showing FPV drone operators from the north, Sever, grouping striking explosives planted under a bridge. The strike caused a massive explosion, and the bridge structure collapsed completely. The crossing was effectively destroyed. At the time, we highlighted a crucial detail. This bridge was the only crossing over the Vovcha River that realistically connected the remote northeastern tip of the Kharkiv region with the rest of the territory. The Vovcha River flows here, winding from the state border and heading west toward the town of Vovchansk. Because this bridge was destroyed, settlements such as Shabelne, Pishchain, Nesterna, Krula, and Dektyana were essentially cut off from the mainland. At that point, we suggested that the Russian army might take advantage of the situation and soon begin an offensive in this sector. Sure enough, on January 18th, the first video from this direction appeared, showing a Russian reconnaissance and sabotage group advancing toward Dektyana while under fire from Ukrainian FPV drone operators. However, based on those clips, we didn't make any changes to the map then. The reason is simple. The village of Dektyana had already been marked on the map several months ago, following a report from the Russian Ministry of Defense. Therefore, no adjustments were necessary at that moment. On January 19th, another video arrived, showing the use of TOS-1A Solntsepiok, heavy flamethrower systems against forward positions of the Armed Forces of Ukraine, AFU, located inside this small pocket, cut off from the main territory. Then today, January 20th, the first video materials appeared that directly indicate the start of active Russian advancement in this sector. Assault operations are currently underway toward the settlement of Nestern, and there is specific footage of combat engagements in that direction. Thus, as we predicted, the most remote northeastern part of the Kharkiv region will likely fall under the control of the Russian armed forces in the near future. The logic and objective of the offensive in this sector are clear. Reach the line of the Vovcha River and then develop the offensive further south to link two existing bridgeheads. Currently, there is a bridgehead in the Vovchansk area and a separate one in the Dvorichna area, but a significant gap remains between them. Pushing through the far northeastern part of the Kharkiv region is intended to play a key role in merging these sectors into a unified front. Once acting as a unified front, Russian units will be able to push deeper into the Kharkiv region toward the Pechenihi Reservoir. In the near future, we should expect map adjustments roughly along that hypothetical red line. Additionally, today some pro-Russian analysts reported Russian advances in a small forest area designated as Ambernoy III, located near the settlement of Hryhorivka. This indicates that the Russian army is maintaining high activity here and continuing its forward movement. That said, it is important to note that the ultimate goals of this offensive remain somewhat unclear. Fierce battles for Kupiansk are ongoing, and the overall situation in this direction is largely obscured by the fog of war. It is extremely difficult to discern exactly what is happening on the ground. It is not yet clear whether the Russian army is merely aiming to straighten the front line along the hypothetical red line, or if it plans a deeper operational development. However, one thing can be said with confidence. This activity will likely force the Ukrainian command to redeploy some forces from the Kupiansk sector further north towards settlements like Bilyi Kolodyaz and Veliki Burluk to stabilize the situation. At the very least, the North grouping will likely succeed in drawing away some Ukrainian units from the Kupiansk axis. This, in turn, will create additional opportunities for the West, Zapad grouping, to operate more intensely near the Oskil River and develop its advance in that direction. Moving on to the Slavyansk sector of the front. Several video materials have emerged from this direction, though they are mostly focused on artillery strikes and hits on AFU positions. As for the maps, there are no adjustments as of yet. There is footage from the Siversky Donetsk River area. These videos show Russian artillery and aviation strikes on forward AFU positions, FPV drone pilot locations, and river crossings. The key episode shown in these clips is a strike on another crossing near the Siversky Donetsk, which Ukrainian units used to resupply and support the AFU garrison in the Lyman area. Next, we move to the Kostyantynivka direction. Based on video materials published by the Ukrainian side, there is a slight leveling of the front line along the H32 highway. Ukrainian footage indicates full control over the H32 road on the Kostyantynivka-Chasiv Yar section and further toward Bakhmut. The city of Kostyantynivka itself continues to be hit regularly by aerial bombs. There are also reports that one such strike completely destroyed a bridge in the northwesternmost part of the city. This will likely degrade AFU logistics in this direction and complicate their movement within the district. In the Dobropilya direction, the main events are unfolding near the settlement of Gryshyne. Ukrainian sources are reporting on this today. According to the latest adjustments, Russian units have managed to improve their positions in the southeastern part of the settlement. There is also a video showing Ukrainian operators attempting to track Russian reconnaissance groups operating in this sector. Based on this material, we are adjusting the map accordingly. Furthermore, Ukrainian sources are expressing serious concern that Russian units are noticeably increasing the pace of their offensive. We can see that the acceleration of the center grouping's actions began after Valery Gerasimov arrived at the command of this axis, likely to personally assess the situation and resolve a number of operational issues. Finally, we turn to the Zaporizhia direction. As of today, there are no changes or adjustments here. Russian units continue to repel AFU strikes along the Verkhnya Tersa-Zaliznikny line. Simultaneously, the Russian army is expanding its presence along the Haichur River on the Pryluki-Olena-Kostyantynivka line and further toward Huliai Pola. That is all for now, friends. Subscribe to the channel and support us with likes. Wishing you all a good and peaceful day.